Hello, we called the meeting to order before going into executive session. We are now reopening in open session, and just as a reminder, per Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the public will not be allowed to physically access the school committee meeting this evening, but the meeting is being taped and it will be Montague Community Television will be broadcasting the tape later this week, probably by tomorrow, and it will also be available on our website then. And therefore, necessarily, even though we welcome visitors ordinarily, opportunity for public participation, which is policy BEDH, has been temporarily suspended by a school committee vote on March 23rd, 2020, because of the aforementioned change. Okay, the next item is important events upcoming. The schools remain closed from March 16th through May 4th. At this time, that's as much as we know about the closure. And also, we wanted to remind people at this time that the lunch and breakfast that will be available to all children under 18 this week, they will be delivered again on Wednesday and Friday, as they have been the past week or so. But on Friday, children will be given 4 lunches and 4 breakfasts, so that they will have lunch for Friday, breakfast and lunch for Saturday, breakfast and lunch for Sunday, breakfast and lunch for Monday, and breakfast Tuesday. The following week, lunches will be available on Tuesday and Thursday instead of the usual because of the Monday holiday.
Jane, Tuesday and Friday.
I'm sorry, Friday. I'm sorry, Friday. Yep, my mistake. But there will be, that information will also be posted, Joanne.
Yep, it's posted in all of the regular spots. It's out there already on a pink flyer, and it's on our website and on Positively Gill-Montague.
Yes, good. So all of those areas, the information's available to people. Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report.
I think I'll start with announcements. We have one really. The kindergarten registration will start tomorrow at Gill and at Hillcrest, and there will be multiple dates for it. So this is just, we're going to just get it off the ground tomorrow. The principals have done a nice job coming up with a thoughtful process. There's really 3 different ways to register. Tomorrow there's drive-up registration, where families can pick up paper copies of registration information and then take it back home and fill it out. So there won't be, a interpersonal exchange or discussion. It'll just be to come in and pick up the documents. The times for tomorrow, it's at between 1 and 2 o'clock at Gill, and also between 1 and 2 o'clock tomorrow at Hillcrest. And then on the 22nd, it will also be at both schools from 1 to 2 o'clock. And at Hillcrest, we'll also have an opportunity on Thursday, the 16th, between 3 and 4 o'clock. So Hillcrest has a second opportunity Thursday between 3 and 4. If a family does not want to do drive-up registration, they can also download the student registration forms from our website. Also, they could request them through the mail. So we're trying to provide multiple ways to have people submit those. And then they will be reviewed by the office staff and the school nurses. There's often additional information that's necessary. So families can expect to be contacted by the school to either confirm that this documents they've submitted are fine, or they will be contacted to have explained to them the additional information that we need. So there's details about all that going out to families in emails and also being posted on the website, and also a little bit on Facebook. So that's just getting started. There will be many opportunities to do that. No one needs to rush and do that tomorrow. So that's what I have for announcements. I think those are that's my only announcement. I think I'll go through with my other quick news. MCAS is off it's officially canceled for the spring. I know you were all worried about that, but grades 3 through 10, all of those exams will not happen. Also, something of big concern I know is the Student Opportunity Act deadline. That's been extended at least until May 15th for me to submit our plan for how we plan to use that additional Chapter 70 money that we're going to receive next year, hopefully still receiving, but that's up in the air now. And then there was also information from the commissioner related to regional school district budget process. They wanted to acknowledge the fact that town meetings may be happening later, and regional school districts may need extensions to get their budgets finalized. So there's a little bit of detail in your report about that. I think that's all I have for really what I would call my report, Jane. The other stuff I have comes up in agenda items.
Okay.
And Mike,
All right. Anyone, Michael?
Yeah, going back to the MCAS announcement, Stacy was reading that to me earlier today, and I'd sworn it ended with something like, and this may give us an opportunity.
We can't hear you.
I lost you.
I think you broke up just as you started,
Given
Mike.
that we haven't had useful or legitimate MCAS results for 12 years now.
I think the MCAS police cut you off there, Mike.
I think they knew what you were going to get in trouble. So all we heard was you said they hadn't given us good results, but nobody disagreed.
Yeah, I have not heard much in the way of, maybe it isn't a time to rethink some of what we're doing, but that may be out there, but I haven't heard it in any substantive way yet.
I was going to say, Stacy was reading the announcement she got, and that's where it ended. So I think that's a good omen, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you. In that case, Joanne, business and operations report, anything in particular?
No, I have nothing to share. So I'm going to start working on my report for your next meeting soon. So that way
Okay, well, I
I
know
will
you've
have
been-
some stuff for you.
Right, you've been busy behind the scenes, truly, so that's
Yeah.
fine. Thank you.
And she has been working a lot to look at the implications of this year's budget of this closure. So but it's just not in a place, there's still lots of unknowns, but she's been looking a lot at, the costs that have shifted, like not having substitute teachers, but then the other costs that have been added. And I think maybe next meeting will be time for a report.
Right. I'm hoping I can get it together by then. We have savings in, like, not just the substitute teachers, but maybe our supplies, except we're able to buy more computers to get the computers out to the kids.
Ah,
'Cause
right.
we don't need the paper supplies and stuff that we needed previously. So we're looking at a lot of those things. We're looking at our out of district tuition placements, and because those are contracts also. And there's the two conflicting laws, one that says you can't pay for services you don't receive, and another one where I guess it's not a law, but the state is saying you should pay, come to an agreement with your different contractors, so that way these places are in business when we come back to school.
Mhm.
So they don't agree with each other. So, we need to find a place in the middle that's comfortable.
Mhm.
Jane, I have Carl now in the waiting room.
Oh, yes, please. Hi, Carl.
Oh,
In the root cellar there, big fella?
Can you hear us, Carl?
I certainly can. Can you hear me?
We can. There's an interesting glow around your head. I don't know what to assume that means.
It's just an ecstatic experience.
Long as you're having fun.
Gonna say frost, but that's good.
Yeah, right. Anyway, we were just in the very beginning, the superintendent's report we had, business and operations, not too much in particular, just lots of things being looked at. And now we're moving on to school committee reports. The warrant subcommittee approval, we need to take a vote on that, and I will read you. It's warrant number 3043. The date is 4/15/2020. The amount is $161,395.01. I will entertain a motion to approve that signing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Heather moved, and who seconded? I heard a couple voices. Haley? All righty, thank you. All those in favor, just give us a little wave. And
Yes.
good, thank you. Got it. Unanimously passed, thank you. I believe that's all under the warrant subcommittee approval. Anything else under school committee reports that anyone has? Okay, moving on to business. The first item is the search process for the Gill Elementary School principal, and that is you, Michael.
Yes. So, yeah, unfortunately, we need to do this again. I've already, informed you that Connor's going to go to Hatfield Elementary and has a job closer to home with his young family. That's important. Anyway, he wrote a nice message to the community, and it's time for us to, get a search going. My plan is to get going quickly. I like to move these processes along, and it's hard now with this lack of direct contact, but I think we can still make it work. And I think it's early enough in the year that we don't have to resort to an interim search. As I mentioned, I wrote to the Gill staff, it's a desirable position to be a principal of that school. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to find someone really highly qualified for it. And so, I've outlined a search, sketched out a search process for you. But if for some reason we don't find the right person, we could consider an interim at the end of the search. But I'd like to go into it thinking we'll find the right permanent person. For conversation purposes, I thought I'd give you some specifics about what I was thinking. I actually don't think Sabrina and I got the position posted today, but we want to do that tomorrow. And I also want to get word out about looking for volunteers to be on a search committee. My thoughts about a search committee would be the following: to have 2 teachers, 2 other staff members, 2 parents or guardians, one of the other principals in the district, and then 1 central office administrator as well, and one of the 2 administrators to chair that. Typically, I like chairing those myself the whole way through. And the reason I'm thinking of doing it differently this time has to do with my leaving and also Brian Beck's coming. And I think what would be a nice approach would be for neither of us to have kind of a leg up on the process above the other, but for us to both be mutually involved, so that if the search committee comes up with 2 finalists, maybe 3, but probably 2, they would get recommended to Brian and I, and then I would anticipate the two of us would jointly hold interviews with those folks and then jointly decide, who we thought the best person was. Also in that timeline, it's unlikely, but if it was possible to arrange site visits in either direction to a finalist school or for them to meet publicly with people here, I'd like to set that up, but that's looking less likely the way things are headed. So I'm open to feedback you have about that, but I thought I would give you some specifics that I had in mind, early specifics about how that might go.
I think it's very generous for you to include Brian.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and I think it helps. I know it really is the superintendent's purview to hire principals, but I think giving us this information is really helpful in getting it out there to people. That it's a process where staff and parents or guardians can be involved. I think that's really important and great.
It was a good one last time. People were very excited about Connor, and we had a lot of involvement in that process. So it was good.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anything else on this, anyone? No? Okay, thank you. As we move on to item B under business, the remote learning plans, I know this isn't exactly part of the learning plan, but we didn't designate it separately, so we will need to vote on some new MOAs that have been arrived at, and I will entertain a motion to approve the following. Memorandum of agreement between the Gill-Montague Regional School District School Committee and the Gill-Montague Teachers Association, Units A and C.
So moved.
Mike moved.
Second.
Heather seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you all. And the second is memorandum of agreement between the Gill-Montague Regional School District School Committee and UFCW Local 1459, which is food service workers and custodial and maintenance. Am I correct in that term?
Yep.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for that as well.
I move we approve said.
Okay, Mike
Second.
and Heather seconded again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And shall we look at the remote learning plans, Michael?
Yeah, it's long and I can walk you through parts, but mostly I'll see if you have questions and I'll tell you a little bit about context. And then I know you had specific questions about the technology tools and making the access to those more equitable. So I'll probably speak mostly about that and then see if you have questions. So I can't even remember now if we talked about this together. I guess we did not. You saw an early draft of the remote learning plan. We did send it to faculty and staff for feedback. We got a ton of feedback about it. And that also included suggestions that we look at a couple of other districts' plans, which we were doing anyway, but we overhauled it significantly. And it's simplified, and then we broke it down into sections of early childhood grades, elementary grades 3 through 5, middle school and high school. And we worked on coming up with a schedule. We tried to keep in mind the needs of families that might have kids across the grade span. So we tried to spread it out as much as we could. We also tried to well, we avoided having students receiving any direct instruction at its time the meals were being distributed. So together I think we did a nice job putting the pieces of the puzzle together in terms of district need. And then we asked principals to spell out what they were going to do, scheduling the teachers within their buildings and within their grade span, and then for them to publish that information to their own families, which they did. There's a lot of latitude in the plan for how teachers go about using their professional judgment to do remote learning. The banks on the river are that we want there to be at least once a week where teachers interact face with some, seeing each other over the computer. And then we decided that we were not going to be grading assignments. Well, you saw this in the earlier version of the plan, that it would be kind of a credit, no credit system at the secondary level. I'm trying to think of what else is changed. We did adopt a model of one course per day that a student has at the high school level. And it works really well with our long block schedule. And I think both teachers and kids and families will appreciate the kind of singularity and the lack of complexity to that approach. So that's something that we borrowed from Northampton. They might have borrowed it from other places, but that's a nice feature, I think, of the plan. And there's a ton more detail in it, but generally that's how it's structured. And I sent an email out to all families on Friday afternoon trying to show my version of enthusiasm for how this has gotten started. The teachers I keep hearing all these examples of teachers doing awesome things and of families really appreciating it and families really working hard to help support their kids to be able to do things on their end as well. So it's off to a good start, considering how big of a learning curve there is on this. And clearly it is not the same caliber of teaching and learning as we would have if we were all, at school. I'll pause there and see if you have any things you want to talk about before I talk about the providing the provision of Chromebooks.
Any questions on the plan in general or the changes that Michael has outlined?
I like the way you've set out the time frame for different groups. It seems to allow for some flexibility on the teacher's part in terms of having two things to do at one time. Maybe that's not clear, but that's how it looks to me. And then the only question is, in the afternoon sessions with the student time, independent learning from, how is that gonna happen? By email? That's not gonna be video, is it?
No, not video.
So that's the kind of thing that they can all type in and then the teacher has to determine how to respond?
Yep. And we have, we already had at the secondary level this Plus Portal system that some teachers used extensively and some really hadn't used very much, but it allows you, that in combination with Google Classroom, allows teachers to correspond, not just through video, but correspond through writing with individual students or with groups of, or with the whole class. So it's not dependent on this kind of a meeting approach.
The teachers have to do a fair amount of input in terms of that, and they'd have to enter all the addresses, for example, or is there some way that this program sets that up?
It's
could you press say for everybody, have a button to click everybody or individual?
Yes, but the initial setup, some teachers had this set up in this Plus Portal system already where they took their grade book and pushed it into Google Classroom without needing to type in all of the kids' names and emails. That could happen automatically. Some teachers needed to do it themselves. And just as we were launching this, Tina, the tech director, found a way to make that download happen automatically. And I frankly don't know how many teachers were able to push a button versus manually enter, 20 names.
Okay.
Haley?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the teachers in the first couple days of rolling this out. I've been interacting with a lot of them, and it's been really collaborative, and everybody that I've needed to reach out to has been very responsive in a short amount of time. So I think they're doing a wonderful job.
Thanks.
Same here. Thank you, Haley.
Mike?
Keeping with my Cassandra role, things can happen, and I want you to just reassure us all that the administration is prepared to try and manage problems that may come up with the health of teachers and other what will be emergencies in this system. Let people know we don't know all the answers yet, and we haven't assumed that we do. And we know that there are all sorts of things well beyond our control that could happen and blow certain parts of this apart.
Oh, lost you again.
After the word apart, you were not, we couldn't hear you after the word apart.
Did we lose me again?
Yes.
It seems like you get about 30 seconds, Mike, and then we lose you.
Oh, that's
Well, I
not,
just want to reassure the community that we don't think that now that we've got this, we're all set and everything will be great, that we're prepared to deal with emergencies. Well, we will deal with them as best as we can as they arise.
Michael?
Yeah, well, thank you. What that makes me realize I should mention is the kind of the guideposts that we have that we're following as a district, because I don't think I sent these out to parents, but I'm just going to very quickly tell everybody what's on our mind in the spirit of what Mike is saying. The first one is adaptation. We totally understand that we are, needing to make adjustments as we go throughout this process. The second one was professional judgment, that clearly teachers are going to need to use a lot of their own judgment. This is not an accountability system. All of the things that need to be thought out cannot be done centrally here more than ever. So that's another thing. The third guidepost we have is relationships first, that supporting everybody during this is more important than trying to capture as much learning as we can. And then the fourth thing is for teaching in the moment, teaching in a way that loosens things up and allows teachers to try and think of things that are really going to be engaging and that will work for kids more than trying to cover ground. And the fifth thing, if we had one, we don't, but it would be humility, I think, is really important for all of us going forward. And so far, I mentioned this in executive session, this has been very complex, and it's been working as well as it has because it's been really highly collaborative among everybody. And that's been important.
Thanks, Michael. Cassie?
So I just wanted to kind of comment on that and say, as a parent in the district, I'm still working full-time at home. In addition to like extra hours, like my job has become more difficult remotely. And I think, the principals are CC'd on every email, and I know they're in the classrooms. Christine Limoges has commented a number of times, just kind of cheering kids on. And I think teachers are really doing a wonderful job of trying to deliver instruction in a variety of different ways, and also understanding that this is an unprecedented time, and, just kind of using their judgment that, different families have different situations, and it's not always possible, to do everything, but just really putting those relationships first in terms of connecting with families and being that, that stable person that, because this is an anxious time for kids as well. So, kudos to everything that they're doing. And I think that this district especially is doing a wonderful job, with their families. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one more thing on students of concern. How do you feel that that's going to be addressed? I know this is really should be looked at as a long-range plan. Just like you mentioned, you're going to have teacher meetings or all staff meetings once a month. That's only 2.5 meetings from now to the end of the year. So it's, whereas with the students of concern, you're looking at absences of a week, and we only have 8 weeks left. Is that going to be good enough, or is that the way it needs to be? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention when I was telling you about the changes in the plan, one of the things we built in also from Northampton is Mondays are not direct instruction days, and they're set up to be days for teacher collaboration, so that in things like general ed teachers meeting with people like Cassie to talk about accommodations and modifications and how you can design some instruction and some supports for all students can occur the other 4 days of the week. So even though we said the monthly staff meeting, we're not going to increase those. There's like weekly meetings of department heads with principals. There's grade level team meetings happening. There's lots of meetings in collaboration among teachers that don't even involve administrators to support individual students. But I will say that, and we were talking about this just before the meeting started, even though Tina has been working really hard, the things technology is achieving are very tangible and rewarding it. But the work that pupil services is doing right now is really difficult, because the kind of supports you were trying to put in place for students, you just can't deliver those kinds of services, a lot of them remotely, or at least remotely easily. And we totally recognize that that's a big area of challenge going forward right now.
Will the new puppy on the force help in any of this?
It's another interesting question. One of the things we're doing is, we haven't reached this threshold yet, but with the students that are hard to reach, or we haven't heard from them or their parents yet, we are planning on having our school resource officer, probably accompanied by Mac, the dog, to make some home visits so we can really, I guess what do they call them in police world? Wellness checks, to see how people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
I think just before you continue, Michael, I think it's really, I think it's been said in lots of ways, but I don't think it can be said too often. This kind of thing, nobody really anticipated the way things have been going for education in the district, but I think it's just been heartwarming to see how everyone has done their best to rise to the occasion. The families are certainly doing everything and then some. The staff members, from everyone in central office, the teachers, the cafeteria, the custodians, just everybody has just gone above and beyond. And I think that's not a surprise. We know that's the kind of people we have, but we really do appreciate everyone.
Yeah, it is. It's bringing out some really good qualities among everybody. It's terrific.
Yes, thank you. Okay, continue.
So you all asked me to tell you about how we're doing with Chromebook and technology access. So I provided you with some statistics here. I'm just going to read these real quickly to you. So on last Wednesday, I guess that was last Wednesday. It was like weeks ago. Gill Elementary provided 28 Chromebooks to families. Hillcrest provided 20, Sheffield 36, and middle and high school 55. So that was based on the early requests we received. And now, tomorrow, we have planned 45 more Chromebooks to go out to middle and high school students, some of which are reunifications of Chromebooks from kids' lockers with kids that were already had them, but for some reason didn't bring them home back on March 13th. So, so part of that will be is the source of some of those Chromebooks. And then we are planning to provide a third wave of Chromebooks probably next Wednesday or Thursday. We don't have a definite date yet, to return to the elementary levels and pick up people we didn't pick up the first time around. We have found a vendor for Chromebooks. They are hard to get, but Tina has a shipment of 100 of them on the way. And so that will help us do a kind of a third wave of provisioning people. And by this time, by the third wave, I think we will be able to provide them to families that may have a computer in the house already, but they may have 3 kids and 2 parents all trying to use the same device. So I think we'll be able to expand who we can offer them to going forward.
Great. That's really good information for people. Jennifer?
I'm not sure how many families we haven't heard from, but maybe some of those wellness checks, checking to see if they have computers just before we give them all away. Some of that might be that they're not really tapped into all the information. I know there's been robocalls and things to help if people aren't online, but those folks might need them especially.
Yeah, that's a good thing for me to request that Officer Minor ask about when he's there. So I'm just writing that down. Thank you.
Mike?
Similarly, do we know that all of our students' families have access to the internet? Just another question to.
Yeah, we don't, I'm not aware of any families that have not figured out a way to have access to the internet. We've talked about it. We've talked about how you can get it for free from Comcast. We've provided information about hotspots around the community. I imagine there are still some folks that haven't quite figured that out yet, and we've invited them to be in touch with us, but we don't have a list we're working off of or anything like that.
Thank you.
That's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Mike, would you like to do the next part?
I could wait till after my concern is more with our overall mission master plan. I don't want this to seem like a reflection on the distance learning plan, but it's up to you. I'll go whichever, but I can wait till after the warrant subcommittee discussion.
Okay, sure. I think we're of necessity being a little less strict about following the order of things. In terms of the payroll warrant process, a couple of things have happened or may need to happen. Within this past year, the legislature has passed a new Mass General law about signatories for warrants. And we right now have a warrant subcommittee of 3 people. And it was on my list that we should discuss this new regulation that passed the state level, that you can have a single signatory for warrants and you don't have to have a subcommittee. I personally, under normal circumstances, think it's better to have a 3-person subcommittee responsible for that. I think in a regional school district, finances can be fairly complicated, and I think it helps to have a lot of eyes. I know we all get the information on the warrants before they're signed, but I think the 3-member system is a good one. However, at this time, since the Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16A, says that we are able to appoint a single signatory to sign the warrants, We have been doing that in this emergency. We agreed to do it at a previous meeting, and I've been signing those warrants because I'm also the signer for the payroll warrants. But I think it would be helpful if the committee took an actual vote to use this process for the time being while we're not able to have our meetings in person. So I will entertain a motion to appoint a single signatory to sign the warrants, and that person in this case would be myself.
So moved.
Second.
Heather moved. Haley seconded, I believe. All those in favor?
I would
Yes.
just a minute.
I'm sorry,
There should be
discussion.
some discussion, and my discussion would be, isn't it usually the chairperson that is designated to do that? You didn't, in the motion doesn't say, you said a person and then that you would be doing it in this instance.
Oh, I'm sorry,
you-
the chairperson, this law is brand new, and the law itself simply says you may appoint a single signatory. I did do a little bit of research on it when it passed, and there is no requirement or even expectation that it be the chair necessarily. It can be just someone's task. We had simply done this for the time being because I have to go in occasionally to sign the payroll warrants. And therefore it seemed to make sense to have just one person going into the office instead of more than one.
As chairperson, do you think that it's, would be too encumbersome for you to continue doing, for someone in the future to do it? Because as chair, you're most in contact, I think, with the central office.
I have no issue with the signing part. I think in the future, when we are back to in-person meetings and being able to do things as we are typically doing them, I think having a separate warrant subcommittee that does not necessarily involve the chair is a good idea. The responsibility being to look at the warrants as well as sign for them. And I think it's good to have a variety of eyes on those.
Thanks, you're a saint for volunteering.
There you go. Jen?
Yeah, thank you, Jane. But should we also nominate somebody to be an alternate if for some reason you can't get in to do it? Is that Heather?
You have
You're the
just,
vice chair.
we just did number 1 on my list, and you're
Perfect.
already working on number 2. Good job. Yes, that's going to be the second motion because I think people get sick, things happen, right? Right,
Things happen.
right. So at the moment, any other discussion about appointing a single signatory for the warrants? That's the motion as it stands. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't see a couple of hands there. Yes, no, anybody opposed or abstaining? Bill, is that a yes or a
That's a yes.
yes? Okay, looks like we're unanimous. Thank you. And the second part of that is we do have an assistant treasurer. Mike is our very able assistant treasurer who signs things that need signing as well. But as in this case, sometimes people are not available if something happens, if I'm ill or Mike's ill and things need to be signed. I think it would be really helpful if we were to vote to appoint an alternate signer for all the warrants in case of need or emergency, however people would rather phrase it.
Do you have a nominee?
Heather, being vice chair, has nodded her head when I asked if she would be able to do this. So I'm thinking we could nominate Heather.
That'd be fine.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks, Heather.
So moved.
All right. So do we want to phrase it as appoint an alternate signer for all warrants in case of, I couldn't decide if it should say emergency or in case there was the need for an alternate signer?
should the need arise.
Should the need arise. Ooh, I like that. Thanks, Mike. So we'll appoint an alternate signer for all warrants should the need arise, and that nominee is Heather Katsoulis. And we have a motion, did I hear?
Yep.
Michael? Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Bill, I think I heard first. Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Signify by waving at me. Oh, everybody's frozen but me. Well, that's interesting.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I got Bill and I got Mike, Haley.
Aye.
I see Jen, I see Cassie, and Heather. I think I saw you, right? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. I think those little housekeeping items are well taken care of. And only other two items are minutes and next meeting. So Mike, would you like to?
Yes, please, thank you. And give me the high sign if it cuts out. These remarks were sent around. They've been edited since. My concern is for the district as a whole and our direction moving forward under these circumstances. And I'll just roll right into it. I'll let you know where cuts have been made so you don't get lost.
Okay.
As parents, community members, taxpayers, what do we expect? So there's some background information and then I'll get to my point. As parents, community members, taxpayers, what do we expect public schools to do for kids? Speaking for myself, I expected the schools over 13 years to support the basic development of the intellectual and reasoning tools that Stacy and my kids would need in order to take the next steps in a responsible and productive life, and to be the community center for their socialization and acculturalization. How about the National Education Association? They believe that public education is the gateway to opportunity. All students have the human and civil right to a quality public education that develops their potential, independence, and character. Our state school board says the goal of the Massachusetts public K-12 and adult education system is to prepare all students for success in life. In the GMRSD, our mission is challenging and supporting every student to succeed through strong leadership, excellent teaching, and community engagement. In this time of crisis, our mission, our core values must continue to be central in our decision-making and strategy development, and not lost to expedience and short-term goals. So where are we right now with our mission? We have a plan that emphasizes remote learning, which is a new endeavor for the district in terms of technology tools, behavior norms, content coverage, instructional practice, and family engagement, just to name a few areas. There is no way to anticipate and train for it all. It's an obvious reality that the professional judgment of our educators in areas where they may have no experience or training, as described above, will be relied upon more than ever in teaching. Our administration and the school committee have expressed full trust in our educators' judgment and stand ready to consult with and support them individually and collectively in navigating this situation, though we have minimal experience or expertise in distance learning either. We're all going to need to learn as we go. Following, here's one parent's reaction to an early draft of this plan. I've excised a lot of the original concerns because they've been dealt with very well by the planning. To quote, I am the parent of a kindergarten at Hillcrest. I've seen your remote learning plan and have found that much of this is unrealistic and unfair to the current global situation. At the very core of this plan, you have teachers who, many of them, have families and children of their own and who are not now attending school or work and have been inundated with more work than they have ever experienced in the classroom. I cannot imagine being the teacher of and parent of two small children who are confused and upset like all other small children, and trying to reach them and not ignore them the entire day. Throw in a spouse who is an essential worker, and that leaves every single piece of responsibility on that one teacher, that one parent, whose world has also been completely flipped upside down. Our teachers are the core of the schools. They care so much about their students. This does not allow them to step back and care for their own families as much as they need to right now. That parent goes on to make the same convincing case for families who don't have teachers as parents and may have no training or ability to accomplish these tasks. So let's go back to the mission. Our mission is challenging and supporting every student to succeed through strong leadership, excellent teaching, and community engagement. How will our developing master plan do that? Education research indicates, and there's lots of education research, and we could probably find education research that disagrees, but the research I saw indicates that a 5% absentee rate per year, that's 9 days, for teachers or students is a critical threshold beyond which the education year for those students is potentially, even likely, a net loss. Every class in each one of our schools has now missed 18 days of instruction as of today. If schools reopen on May 4th, the total will be 26. If schools don't reopen, we can add another 26. Is it our intention to just wave our students through this school year and on to the next? Ready or not? Rhetorical question. Now I'm quoting from another source. I worry a lot about high school students who are potentially already somewhat disconnected from school, ultimately dropping out, said John King, President and CEO of the Education Trust and a former U.S. Secretary of Education. We've made tremendous progress in this country around high school graduation, but there are a set of kids whose connection to school is fragile. States are adopting distinct approaches that may have uneven results and uncertain effect on racial disparities that already pockmark climbing U.S. high school graduation rates. This is still quoting. Students in one state may speed to a diploma if their graduation was on track before the pandemic spread, while someone studying across the country might still need to complete classes off campus. Affluent suburban schools have fired up electronic learning software on fast web connections that aren't as fast as they thought they'd be, but still, that's not necessarily the case for poor students in urban areas, tribal school students who lack electricity, and students learning English. Quoting again, colleges should invest more in programs that offer intensive tutoring, King said, as he argued that any future congressional stimulus bill should send money to help minority-serving institutions and community colleges. Quoting again, there is both work that states and districts need to do now to help students complete the year successfully, and then there's work that higher ed and workforce development programs need to do to prepare to support entering students who will have missed significant portions of the school year as a result of the closures, King said. Colleges might have to rethink how they treat freshmen who didn't complete a normal last year of school. That's the end. Thus endeth Mr. King's quotes. My question is, what about the other 12 grades in our district? Who's going to remediate them as they progress through the system? It's all well and good to pass the seniors on to colleges and employers for remediation. Actually, it isn't. But every other student at every other grade level is staying right here with us. Why would we do that to them, rhetorically? Why would we do that to our teachers who are stressed to the breaking point in a normal school year? My opinion, we're placing ridiculous and inequitable pressures on our students and their families with our plan, master plan, while our end goal seems simply to graduate the class of 2020 on time. We're placing even more ridiculous pressures on our teachers. But what about the seniors? Rhetorical question, you might ask. Don't they have to move on? Why? I respond, where are they going? The job market won't be there for them. 17 million unemployed adults will compete for 11 million fewer jobs. Well, what about college? They can still go to college, right? Well, I'll ask if you've noticed how low profile higher ed has been through this crisis. Are we secure that there won't be a huge backlash when students paying $25,000 a year for college are told that distance learning is just as good as normal college? What if you're a biology or chemistry major, or an acting or a music major, or a healthcare or engineering major? Do we really think the displaced students and families from 2020 with their substantial debt will just suck it up and move on in September to make room for our seniors? And what if colleges start going out of business at a rate similar to businesses going out of business? Has there even been a public conversation about the higher ed recovery plan? Big Ed is going to take both barrels to the chin if its recovery plan focuses on saving their endowments instead of saving education and students. Of course, military service will still be a viable and available and honorable option. But have we all been watching the special way we protect our persons in uniform during this crisis? Forget the Maine, remember the Roosevelt. Okay, coming around the clubhouse turn. I propose that we schedule a meeting as soon as possible to put these meta issues, including the likelihood of the coronavirus lingering for months, if not years, on the table. My recommendation will be to cancel the 2020 school year as soon as possible to start the process of rebuilding education on solid ground instead of on the clock, with teachers and families at the center of the discussion. But that's just me. And I don't have all the answers. I don't even know if I have any answers. None of us will know that until we have the imperative, essential conversation where we ask that question. What are we trying to accomplish? We are the leaders of this school district, and this is our moment. Thank you for listening. And I hereby move that we set up such a meeting as soon as possible.
Wow, thank you.
That's very interesting. I think people have been asking forever, what are our schools doing for us? So that's really not something new, Michael.
No, it isn't.
And in terms of the rest of it, I think that the virtual effort right now is to reinforce what's already been learned. So I wholly agree that you're losing a whole semester of school, but reinforcing subject matter that has supposedly already been mastered can only be a benefit for those kids, for all the kids, to reaffirm that they understand what they've been presented with in the previous 6 months. So that it's true that the virtual learning is not perfect. I think many of the programs that are out there that cost thousands of dollars for people are worthless, but giving up on the year altogether, I think, does not answer the question. And the effort that our staff is going through, I think, is admirable and is trying to address the concerns that you have consistently expressed over years of service in the district as well. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, just in defense of the motion itself, it is not my motion that we cancel the year. None of that. That's all my own opinion. My motion is that we have a meeting to discuss these meta issues. Will there be college to go to? Will the corona continue? How will we deal with that? I'm not trying to get anyone to buy into my theories. That's all on me. But I think we need to be looking at the question, and that's the motion, is whether or not to have a meeting. And if the school committee decides that's not a priority, I'm fine with that. I don't think it would serve us well right now to go back and forth, because that'll take the rest of the night, and that's not on the agenda. And it wasn't my intention to ask anyone to try and defend the school district against my position or my position, either way.
Okay, I think I saw Cassie's hand next, and then Jen and Heather.
I think that you raised some really valid points. I think that, the way that our school system is constructed now, you always have children at different levels, regardless of their grade level. And I think that you always have children that are really strong and could possibly be a grade or two ahead. And then you have children that struggle. And I think that this is a bigger conversation. And I appreciate you wanting to kind of, get together and hash this out. I just am not convinced with everything going on that this is really something that the Gill-Montague Regional School District can really approach single-handedly. I think that we're all in the same boat, and I think that a lot of what is being taught now is a lot of skills reinforcement, and with the hopes that those students that maybe didn't catch on as quickly will be brought up to speed as the others. But I think that we're going to find, especially as more and more states close for the year, that we're all in this together. And so I think, regardless of having the talk as Gill-Montague Regional School District of how we're going to approach this, I think we're, if and I know this wasn't where you were headed, but I think even if we got together next week and had a meeting and decided that, okay, well, we're gonna, and this is drastic, we're gonna make everyone repeat 6 months of the year that they took off or whatever, I think it wouldn't solve all of these problems that all of the school districts are facing. It definitely brings to light equity issues that maybe we didn't know were there, but I'm just not sure if I'm not sure if we'll accomplish anything other than really opening up more cans of worms in doing that.
Okay, I think I saw Jen next. Jennifer?
Just to speak to just part of it is, what are we going to do the rest of the year going forward from May 4th or 5th or whatever the date was. So many parents have been asking me, and I don't know what to say except for we're waiting for the Department of Education, we're waiting for the governor. Like, it's not necessarily the Gill-Montague decision, but it could be. But parents, I think, would just feel a little more comfortable if they could plan. It's uncertain times for everybody, and it's just an added anxiety over the country. It's approaching about half the states have canceled for the year. So that might be a piece that we could talk about, just to, how do we start planning for next year if we're still planning for this year? Some of those questions we can start to think about, but some of the answers we can control, and some of them we might need to wait for guidance from the state and maybe start conversations, but I don't know that we necessarily can answer them all right now. I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm sure none of us feel like we have the answers, but I do hear a lot of anxiety from parents on wanting to know what's happening the rest of the year.
Heather?
I mean, really, it's just some reiteration. The conversations will need to be had. I just don't know that anyone has the answers currently. I don't know what's going to happen to higher ed. I don't know, the uncertainty is the main component that's frustrating, and I don't know how you plan in an unplannable situation currently. Doesn't mean we don't have things to talk about. I just don't think any of those are going to be decision-making conversations at this point.
Bill, did I see your hand again?
Yeah, you did, but I was just going to ask, why couldn't it be just request of the chair to put it on the agenda? But actually, Mike is talking about wanting to have a whole meeting centered around that discussion. So that's why I'm not saying anything.
Okay. Anyone else? Mike?
Yep, thanks for listening. Motion withdrawn.
I think I know it's not, I'm just one of many. I think lots of good points are there. I think it's a big picture with a lot of question marks, sadly now. I think I would wish in a perfect world that we could just meet as a district and figure out how education should be its best right now. I think it's just even harder to have that conversation now, but I don't think it doesn't seem that any of us have forgotten that all those questions are there. I think it's, and I think certainly if, if people are in favor of having another meeting, we certainly could, or keep it, in abeyance. And there is always that option. I think it, maybe when something gets more decided, we could be able to, but I think those are all huge questions that you've raised. There's way more questions than answers. And yeah. Anything else, Heather?
I just want to be clear, Mike, that I do want to have the discussion. I don't feel I have that level of information currently. If you want to send me over some, I don't know if we can, actually you can't really do that. If you have some sort of specifics that you want to talk about, then we could probably, other than like general or secondary, college and workforce, we just don't have those numbers yet. But if there's some other things that you want to talk about, I'm totally in support of more communication about what we could begin to plan on. So I don't want you to think that I'm shooting down the discussion. I don't know where to go currently.
Jennifer?
I mean, going forward, I assume that maybe this should be on every agenda to touch on certain parts of it, or the parts of it that we think we can talk about, that we have information to discuss, or some kind of direction to go in. Maybe starting with the date of reopening, if we want to discuss that, because that's coming up really quickly here.
Bill?
There's so much confusion around what is going on outside because our president is such a fool and won't give you an honest answer, or doesn't even have a clue of what the answer should be. My whole summer has been altered because of this thing. So it's not just the students in school or their parents, it's me too. And I happen to believe that school probably won't open for the rest of the year and go until we get a vaccine for this kind of thing or some real dynamite treatment. It's going to continue to linger. That's my belief. So I don't know that we can solve any of this right away. First, we have to solve how we just carry on our civil society. And it's a work in progress every day.
Heather?
And I do just want to put out there that I have a second grader and an 8th grader, and it's tricky. I mean, I got laid off, so I'm home, which is helpful. But I especially, no, with both of them equally, I appreciate the work that they have so that they don't lose their skills. We see so much skill loss in 2 months of summer that I don't know what we'd end up with after this. I mean, it's no risk. I mean, low stakes, sorry. I think that we've made that pretty clear, especially with relationships first. My son just loves checking in with people. We did see Christine Limoges jump on their morning meeting today, and it's just nice in those ways. I totally understand and totally appreciate the teachers and everyone behind the scenes putting it all together to make it work. But like Bill said, it's just the routine, something to look for. I think it's going to help our sanity with it. And yes, there are going to be people that aren't going to manage as well. And I still think we should have the supports there. And then hopefully we can just identify those people and try to find them more support that will work better for them.
Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that none of that reflects on any of our staff, the administration, school committee, anything. No.
Mom, guess what we're gonna get on the next one?
You're breaking up again. Can't hear you.
Oh, was Michael frozen?
Yes, he froze again. Sorry.
Oh, did you hear the part that this isn't about the staff and all that, that there's no
We
reflection?
heard
Okay,
that piece. Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That was clear too.
Yeah.
Thank
Haley?
you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, Mike brings up a lot of good points, but I really appreciate how we as a district have been focusing on relationships and connection. That's the most important thing right now. I mean, I think the face-to-face time is critical for our students. All of their adults have just evaporated overnight, you know, the ones that they don't live with. And whether their home situation is supportive or not, that connection with those teachers is so valuable and so critical right now. So I'm just really glad that we're focusing on that. I think our priorities are in the right place.
Mhm. And then I think I like the suggestion of coming up with an agenda item each time that allows for, even if we just take a little piece to discuss each time. I think something that came up in a previous discussion with someone, which I'm not really clear on now, sometimes things are getting a little vague, was if things are at all more equal by summer, the idea that it might be helpful to look at the prospect of a different approach to summer school. But again, we can't know that till we know that. But I think to be at least thinking in that vein, maybe a different approach to provide a lot of things that, you know, that would be helpful for children and families that way. I think it's good to keep in mind that there might be unusual solutions once we can make some of those choices. I think it's nice to have those options, and I do think, if it's okay, Mike, I think I'd like to put an agenda item on about the sort of now what, or however you want to phrase it. But I think because everyone is thinking about these things, and it helps. I think you could, you know, you could aim at, like, you know, Secretary of Education. I think you could handle that. I think you could really, you know, they need someone who looks at the big picture and all those little pieces that go into it. I think our district needs it, but I think everyone needs that. Yep. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We will put an agenda item on each time to allow for that. In that case, continuing, we have minutes to approve. They were emailed to us today, the minutes of our meeting on March 10th, 2020. I will entertain a motion to approve those.
Move.
Bill? Thank you. Heather, second, did I hear? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, looks like Jennifer, yes, no?
Just gonna abstain.
Okay, and okay, it's all yeses and Jennifer's abstaining, okay? And it looks like at this point, our next meeting will be April 28th. It is undoubtedly going to be a virtual meeting again. It will start at 6:30 unless we need to have an executive session ahead of time. Did that work okay for people tonight, starting the executive session at 6? Does that seem okay in general? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Anything else? Also, let Michael and/or me know if you have any other ideas about agenda issues. We're trying to keep it to the things that we can deal with, knowing that some things that we can't will have to be plugged in later. All right. Thank you again. Motion.
So I make second. So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Heather?
Everything.
Second.
Michael, second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Looks good.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all again.
Yes, thank you.
Have
You're
a good
welcome.
evening.
Thank
Stay
you.